Hey, folks, welcome to the July 7th edition of Money and Politics Now. And, every night when I think I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, Humbl comes out and does something that makes it the story of the day. And that happened today. And it was more than one thing, which is kind of good. And I'll be talking about that in a bit. But what happened, and let me first preface this. I don't think there's been any issue with Humbl that's probably been more contentious than the issue of the B shares and finding out that there were 10,000, that every B share that was set aside for the initial investors, that every B share could be converted into 10,000 shares of common stock. I'm sure 99% of you already know all that, so I won't go into more detail. But the concern is that we were going to be diluted. Now, I said last night we were not going to be, or at least I also shared the viewpoint of one of our members in the Humbl Nation from over in Europe I was talking to. And I explained that, and you can look at that video if you want. It's from last night. What happened today? Bang. Just as, it seemed like nothing was going to be going on, Brian Foote comes out and says, I'm going to retire. The headline is wrong. I'm going to retire almost 100 million shares. And it says in the lead here that Brian Foote has agreed to retire more than 9,350 shares of the Series B preferred stock that he owns, which is the equivalent, because it's a 10,000 to 1, the equivalent of 93,500 shares of common stock. Now, that was pretty good news. And what happened? Well, what happened was that bang, you see at the end, the price went up almost 10%. And the reaction, I think, is fair to say when we look at what's been going on Twitter, that it's been pretty exciting all day long, or since, I should say, since that came out. As one of our fellow investors said, I've never seen a CEO like this. And I don't know if that's the case to be made, but it certainly is, as I said, I think proof that Brian Foote is a stand-up guy and that he did this. And he had already, and this comes out of his shares, by the way. This is not the company treasury. These are the shares that were set aside for, that were his. He has 45%, and these were coming out of his shares. So, I think a couple of things. One, it's like I say, it goes to show to me, it demonstrates very firmly that Brian Foote is concerned about the company, concerned about the average investor, and he is reaffirming his leadership that he's going to be leading, and that he's, certainly no fly-by-night guy, as we so often hear the horror stories that George Sharp brings up to us from the OTC markets. As someone else said, that Humbl is an OTC stock that doesn't act like an OTC stock in terms of its management. And this, again, is a good example of that. The other thing is that with the Olympics coming up, and, I thought I had this queued up here, and I don't. But there was some other news, coming up from the company, and that's good to hear that they're putting out some news, not only on the stock market, but that we are getting other news. In this case, it was tied to what's going on with the Winter Olympics, with the NFTs, and it is that Humbl has signed track and field athlete Gabby Thomas to represent the brand over the coming year. Excited to have you on board, Gabby, Humbl Nation. So again, this is good news. I did not know. I'm more of a political guy than a sports guy, to tell you the truth. And I couldn't tell you that I knew of Gabby, but obviously a lot more people are interested in sports. I'm the outlier. A lot more people are interested in sports than politics. So and by the way, folks, let me interrupt my own train of thought here. As you look at this, as we think about NFTs, and we know we got athletes first, right? Think how important it is that Humbl and how beneficial to the investors for Humbl to be picking up a brand identity that is not just kind of a geeky digital currency thing, geeky to a lot of people, but to raise awareness of the Humbl brand through sports, which is universal. And they're Humbl going to be global, and they'll be covering track and field, European, soccer, football, baseball. It's global. And this is, from a marketing standpoint, what is powerful. So not only on this day, not only do we get a good sports announcement, we're going to be tying the identity to Humbl more and more to sports. That'll help with the NFTs. That'll help with marketing. That'll help with having stores, businesses around the world wanting to be signed up for Humbl Pay when our that comes out. So not only that, but we have, as we've already covered, that we have a CEO who says, I get your concerns. I'm kind of surprised. Like, why now? I don't know. But as someone else said, it wasn't expected, but it's appreciated. And maybe it was a follow-up to some of the feedback he was getting from the last investor call. I don't know that. I'm just guessing. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was some input from some of the advisors. And however it worked out, I think this is two good moves, and we got both the coverage in one day. As we already said, we got the stock price going up. We closed at $1.14. Not the price that any of us are just giddy about, but certainly nice that it has gone up. And we look, folks, I can't say it any more times than I already have, that we're just going to have to be some patience here. But what I did say, and I'm repeating myself, what I did say a couple of weeks ago, that I think we are going to be getting, is what I said, a lot more news. I think the pace of news, of events coming about is going to be much different than the first 6 months. And as we go forward, this next 6 months from, June 1st through the end of the year, I predicted was going to be more news, breaking news, events, and that's going to be feeding before we get to where we start seeing the revenue numbers that we're all going to be happy about, because that takes some time, and that's being worked on behind the scenes. We're getting news like this, like what Brian did, like Gabby Thomas, like closing, on deals and saying that we're going to be looking for more ticket companies and whatever else they have cooking in the background. So, a good news. I hope that gives you some confidence. One last thing. I question whether I should even do this. There's a guy who wrote in, and I don't want to make it sound like I can't be criticized, but a guy on the YouTube channel from yesterday's video. I don't know why anyone listens to this guy. He's referring to me, and saying how I've led you astray. The reason I do bring it up, and I did put a response on there, is I know that you in Humbl Nation, you who are in at least 20 different countries around the world, You are not sheep. You are not uneducated people. I am not your Pied Piper. And when you hear, and this is why I am bringing it, when you hear this criticism, and I responded because it's not a criticism of me. I mean, on one hand, he meant it to be that. I don't care about that. I don't care if this knucklehead doesn't like me. What I care about is that he's insulting the audience. Because, as I said, I was talking to a fellow last night over in Europe. I've talked to Scott in Atlanta. I've talked to Rebecca in Georgia. I've talked to Allie in New York. All of, no, I haven't met a dumb, humble person yet. And so I guess I'm bringing it up to say, hey, I'm defending your honor, because it's not just your honor. It's that I know you're smart. And I hope that when you listen to these guys, and we really haven't had that much of it, but these are these people that are out there shorting. And, their day will come, because as we see today, we have, as I spoke about last night, a great management team. And this is more examples. The management team at Humbl is only getting better, not just the people on the staff, but you got, with Rob Luna, and you got other people. Rob's not the only one. This is not two guys in a bar, drawing out a business plan on a napkin. We have a good management team. And, if you go back a couple months ago when I talked about, if you might remember that investing is a lot like farming. You plant your seeds and then you sit back and you wait for it to grow. So maybe it's just, I think it's time just to remind everyone of that. And we got some good farmers who are plowing the field for profit. And that's where I think we're going. Now, who's going to be right? Are we going to hit the profit? Yeah, we are. Are we going to hit the profit as much as we think we're going to have by the end of the year? Probably not by the end of the year. I think we're going to start to see it move. But, this is going to take, I'm going to say, that, and it could, I do think, as I said last night, once we start to move, I think the stock too will start to pop. And I think then it'll start popping in stages. So we're in this stage now, the early part of the company history. Whoops, let's get that out of there. And this is where we've been for a month. This is where we've been over the last 6 months. Of course, there's a lot of high interest in the beginning. But I think what I would rather have you be, in fact, I know, I would rather have you be excited, not about the stock price right now. I mean, it would be good to, that would be nice, wouldn't it? But I want you to be excited about reality. And the reality is that we're having things happen right in front of you. This is not me, as I was being accused of, pumping Humbl up. This is, boom, Gabby Thomas. This is, boom, Brian Foote retiring shares because he cares about you, the investor, and he cares about building the company. And so we can go on and on. And this is about Brian announcing, as they did some time ago, that they're going to be talking about Humbl on iHeartRadio. And so, folks, what we are getting is a company that is producing. And I'm happy to be on board. I hope you're happy to be on board. I also briefly want to say, here's a comment. I wish I would have said this in the beginning. Are you guys going to Nashville? Let me know if you're going to Nashville. Thomas and I would be looking to go to Nashville, so we would love to see as many of you as we can. In fact, I want to get Thomas back on soon, just because he and I talk off camera and we get some good conversations. I want you all to hear that. But in the meantime, I'll wrap up. It's been a good day. The price went up almost 10%, but I think, like I said, more more importantly, we got a good management team, folks, and that's the most important thing. You can have temporary days with a stock price move with a bad management team. Over the long run, you're going to want to have the team that's going to be managing the company day in and day out for you, and over time consistently building that share price. I think we have that team. For now, I'll say good night. Have a good one, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow.